How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I'm here with Sean today. What's up, brother? How are you?
Here we go. I'm good, man. Had a great weekend, getting back into the rhythm today. Both kids have strep throat, but they're dealing with it perfectly fine. And of course, they had it when the wife was at a little work conference for 2 days. So emotions were running high in the Ryder household, but we made it through to a new week.
Same, bro. Same, bro. We've been on the road since last Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, and we've had stomach viruses going through all our kids.
Fantastic.
And, it's a joy. It's a joy.
The worst. They don't prep you enough when you become a parent on this sickness illness continuum that is never ending. But I can't complain, dude. It's halfway, getting close to actually not halfway. We're almost to the start of March. We're well over halfway in February, and knock on wood, we've pretty much escaped the winter without having major illnesses in our household. And the kids went to school basically almost every day this year. I feel like last year we were going to the doctor's office every week. It was brutal.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to some heat and some summer temps. So it'll be happening soon enough.
Right. I don't know what the groundhog showed, but it feels like it's getting warmer in these parts. So, man, I've spent 2 hours already today recording some course content for a short-term rental program that we're pumping out here in the next coming weeks. So I'm gonna create a topic for you so you can do a lot of talking today. But it's not revolving around short-term rentals, but it is revolving around real estate. Look, it is mid Q1 of 2024. I've been hearing people since 2020 saying they were going to get into real estate. Then all of a sudden prices went up. Then all of a sudden interest rates went up. Now interest rates are pulling down a little bit. Now the world's going to be in World War III. Now, the stock market's at an all-time high. So everyone's 401ks are looking great because the 401k and the stock market is a true representation of the economy. If you can't smell or taste the sarcasm in my voice, go back and listen to a few other episodes. I still have people, Jeff, telling me they're waiting for something to happen, whatever that something is, insert any reason, before they get their first real estate property. And I'm going to let you get on that platform, get on the podium, and pitch your presidential message on why these people need to take action now. Why is now the time people should buy their first real estate property in 2024? Maybe go over some of the reasons that you hear, because you talk to everyone about real estate. What are the reasons you hear, and how are you selling people on getting into the real estate game?
Oh man. Yeah, this is one that everyone deals with, I feel like, and everyone can make a million excuses as to why they're not hopping in, whether it's real estate or anything. I mean, like you could open this topic up to like asset acquisition, and people will think themselves out of an opportunity, and because of all the things that can possibly go wrong. And it's a biggest limiter to people, because the human nature is to do what we've always done, and to return to comfort, if you will. Even if comfort is discomfort, it's the comfort you know. And so like that's why like alcoholics drink, and like poor people stay poor, and like socioeconomic bandwidths within families stay similar, because you see people self-sabotage as they start to grow out or level up in their socioeconomic bands, and or even their knowledge base. And it's because of fear and trepidation from the unknown of what they don't know. So you'd rather return to the pain of something that's familiar, than to step out into the fear of the unknown and deal with like doing something we've never done before to potentially change our entire lives and the trajectory of our families and our future. And so when you talk about people sitting on the bench or sitting on their hands because of the state of the world or because of interest rates or because of you name it. It's winter and it's cold. They've got a million excuses. Those are just natural things that people return to when faced with growth, if you will. It's no different than any other area. Real estate is just one that's easy to pick on because people are like, well, I'd really like to get into real estate. I see people do it. And then they talk themselves out of it for a million reasons. Ultimately, you should face your fears and move forward regardless of the climate of what's going on, because like that's the only way change occurs, right? We talk about aggressive patience constantly, and what that means is you're aggressively pursuing like the next levels of you and the next levels of your investments, the next levels of your knowledge base, and but with the understanding that these things take time. And real estate, more than any other thing in the marketplace that I've ever been a part of or learned about, outside of maybe just simple compounding interest of investments, it takes time, and that's really how you overcome any obstacles within real estate investing. Is like the more time that you spend in the real estate investment game with a portfolio of ownership, it's undefeated in its growth process. You can look at the trajectory of time. It's kind of like time under tension in the fitness world. It's time under ownership or management in the real estate game. And so regardless of interest rates, regardless of prices, if you wait 5 years, you'll regret you didn't buy 5 years earlier. And that is the biggest regret of every real estate investor I've ever met, is like that one of two things: they didn't get in the market earlier, or they sold properties that they wish they still had.
Mm.
Those two things come up over and over and over again with regards to investors. So if you're talking about when is a good time to buy, now is the answer. No matter what the timing or whatever the economic indicators are, now is a good time to get in.
Yeah, no, I love that. So let's just go with one of the main ones that we hear is like interest rates. So I don't know what they are right now, somewhere between 6 and 8%, depending on the type of financing product that you're getting. But just educate the people on the economics behind interest rates, pricing, and cash flows, and like why should they not worry about interest rates as much as everyone else tells them to?
Well, I think most of that's because of conventional knowledge
Yeah.
of how you buy a house, because most people are used to buying properties, assets, houses, things like that for themselves as personal residence, as primary residence. And like this is the number one misconception that people don't understand with how you buy real estate in general and scale. So like how in the world would I buy 50 properties, or did I buy 50 properties? Like people don't understand it because they go in and they do their FHA loan for their primary home, and it's based on income, debt to income ratio and things like that. And you can't scale and buy real estate portfolios that way. And so like DSCR loans, which are debt service coverage ratio, which is DSCR, that is the way that you buy a lot of properties in scale. It's not, it's an asset-based lending product, meaning they are lending based on the value of the asset and the value of the income that asset can produce, as opposed to my debt to income ratio. All I have to have is a credit rating that's high enough to get approved for a lot of these DSCR loans. And I think that's the number one misconception that people have, because they're trying to scale their own personal portfolio using primary residential products, lending products. Like they're going to their local credit union and
Mm,
trying to get approved in these full doc lending scenarios.
mm.
And so, man, I'm way off base on what you originally asked, but
That's
like
okay.
the interest rate doesn't matter because of the levers that you pull once you get down the road with real estate. So if you can buy it at the right price right now and it cash flows in this environment, you're probably looking at refinancing that thing in 2 to 3 to 4 years, regardless, because rates may change. you're going to have appreciation, you're going to gain equity in the property that then you can pull out through a refinance and then buy more properties. And people get hung up on the overall interest rate because they feel like they're losing money. But what they're truly losing is opportunity.
There you
We
go.
just had this conversation in the group and I got heated with one of our members about it because he hasn't done fucking anything in like 10 months. And he's pissed off about a 14% interest rate on a developmental hard money loan where the bank's taking a shitload of risk. And I explained that to him. Like, they're going to give you all this money to buy this land and then develop this thing. And if you walk out on the thing 2 months into it and there's nothing there but materials, the bank doesn't have shit. And that's why the interest rate is high for the period of time. So it behooves you to get your shit together, take care of it, build it, have an asset, refinance it as fast as you possibly can. So the bank has leverage and then it's not as risky to them. But all he was focused on was the actual interest rate. And so what has he done? He's done nothing in 6 months except bitch about bankers and the amount of interest that they're charging. How does that move you, your family, your future forward? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. And so like the biggest thing you can do as an entrepreneur or investor is learn how to fucking solve problems and never worry about the obstacle in front of you. Like always just take it in and be like, well, this is the hand we were dealt this today. And how are we going to move forward through it? Because like if you can have that attitude about everything, you can do the workarounds, you can put the puzzle pieces together, you can get creative and you can keep moving because there's always a way forward, always. And so these interest rates, but psychology tells us that simply jacking up the interest rate is going to paralyze 90% of the population.
Yeah.
And so whether it's done on purpose or whether it's got nefarious motives behind it, sometimes that's the case because they know how to bring the economy to a screeching halt. Because if they do certain things, there's certain measures that the Fed can do when they know that the psychology of the people, when backed up with like nonstop news propaganda, is going to bring things to a screeching halt. And so the best thing that you can do right now is ignore fucking everything and focus exactly on your path and your plan, which should be to continue to acquire as many assets as you can while other people are sitting on the sidelines. Because right now there's not a lot of competition because you're out there buying properties and assets against people that are waiting for 4% interest or cheap money again. And the best thing you can do is 3 years from now having been continued to move forward and you're sitting on a pile of assets 3 years from now, and then money is cheap, maybe, who knows? And you can then restructure everything that you've put together in the last 3 years while these people haven't done anything, waiting on the sidelines.
Well, I hope the people listening to this is not going to be their first time hearing this part or your answer to this question, but just tell the people what's going to happen if and when rates come down 1 more percent. What's going to happen?
Yeah, you're gonna face exactly what we did in 2021 and part of 22, which is like major appreciation in red states specifically. There is a political climate to this situation where people are moving out and moving their dollars and voting with their dollars with regards to where they'll invest. And so you're going to see appreciation again, similar to what we saw in 2020, 21, 22, which was 20% year over year for 2 consecutive years. In a marketplace I'm invested in down in South Texas, it was 29% year over year. And so if you see prices go up 20 to 30% again, what's that going to do to the rest of the market? So that's going to be one thing. Prices are going to go up. And then the other thing is going to be everyone's going to flood back into the market. All the people that have sat on the sidelines since COVID and not moved, but need another bedroom or have been stockpiling cash, not doing anything, or the people that are investors that are kind of on the fence, like, I'm not going to pay that 8% like we're talking about. they're all going to come back into the marketplace at the same exact time. And you're going to be looking at these bidding wars again. And then, so not only are you going to be driving up prices and overvaluing assets, you're also going to have a tougher time snatching up properties or assets if you want to. And this goes for businesses as well. I mean, the same thing is going to happen across the board.
Yeah. All right. So people, there's the basics on why you need to get into the game now. Now we talk about how the number one rule of investing in real estate is to not run out of cash. So let's hypothetically think about, I have this tendency too, like not only the front end concerns or worries about getting into the game, but once I'm in the game. Now, good rule of thumb, don't use all your cash on your first property, right? You need to have some cash reserves. Now, where my mind goes, because I got into the real estate game 2 years ago, and I've been, knock on wood, very fortunate that I haven't had major expenses come up in any of my properties. I know I will have those someday. But like one thing that concerns me is, the what ifs with the property. So here's one thing that, this is me asking you directly, is like, what you talk about levers. Now you brought up the term levers in regards to basically the financing, right? Get in now at a 6.5%, 7% interest rate. And then when interest rates come down, you have a lever. One of those levers is cash out, refi, get your money back, make the property more efficient, open up your margins, cash flows. What levers do people have once they own an asset? Not full out owning, they have a mortgage against it, but like, what happens if you said there's always an answer. There's always a way forward. And I believe in that too, because I've had to figure that out in other instances of my life. But let's say someone buys that first property and they do run into an issue and they don't want to liquidate their cash. What other levers do people have once they own property that they might be able to pull to help with some of these unforeseen expenses and strategies? How do you handle, maybe you're in a different cash position, but early on, like when something happened, where'd you get more money from? How do you go about handling those issues in properties? People are scared about that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to kind of one of our main philosophies is like open up lines of credit and have liquidity before you need it. And almost every LLC that you open with most banks, if you open a business banking account, which you should, if you have these DSCR loans, like I'm speaking about, you can almost like fog a mirror and get a $50,000 line of credit on that business. Like that's usually where they start because they won't give you $1 more than that because you have no experience or tax returns or anything like that. But most of the time, most banks are amicable on a $50,000 line of credit right off the bat. And I would suggest that because like I teach everybody, you need to treat this thing like a business from the start. So if you're writing checks to it from your personal account, it's not a sustainable business at that point. Sometimes, I mean, things come up. You have to feed your business. I've written checks to my businesses from my personal account in every business I've ever owned at some point in time. So like, I'm not saying that like, I'm above that or some businesses are, but you do have to frame your mindset around this is not a hobby. This is something that makes money for our family and is a profitable investment. And so I run lines of credit on my businesses so that I can see if I'm having to borrow from the line of credit, I am net negative at that point in time. And so like, well, yes, it's more painful for me to go into my personal checking account and write it, but I want to look at this asset class or this package of portfolio that I put together and said, okay, this is a profitable section of my portfolio because I've never taken a line of credit. It's sustaining itself and we're doing distribution 6 months into it. And so you need to frame that. Even if you have one single family home and it's only doing $300 a month, it's a good idea to have that line of credit. And sometimes the banks may only give you $25,000. It depends on what you've done with them, but you can get either $50,000 or $25,000 with them usually. And what you'll want that because if your profit is only $300 a month, you might have a water heater go out at month 5, and like that's your entire profit to that point. And so that's where people get kind of kicked in the balls and they lose their morale to keep moving. And so that's like the no man's land of investing. When you're at like one property to like 7, you're in like no man's land because it's not sexy enough to really do anything. You're not cashing checks and taking your wife out on these bougie ass dates from all the profit it's kicking out. You're just literally getting by, and every once in a while you've got to feed it for something that went wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's another thing that people have. That's a hump you have to overcome and stay in the game. And so, like, mindset is one of the most important things when it comes to real estate investing, because you need to treat it like a business and not a hobby. This isn't something you're doing on the side to, like, okay, I'll grab 5 of these and it will be great for our bottom line. Because eventually you're going to get sick of it, because those are the people that self-manage, and the tenants call them at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve, and they're like they hate their properties. And so the other thing is that you have to play the long game, and you have to say, well, we're going to go do this, and we're going to do it for the next 10 years and see what happens, as opposed to, like, we're going to do it for the next 10 months and try to get rich quick. You will not get rich in real estate quickly. You will get fantastically wealthy if you commit to staying in the game for a period of time. Yeah. And there's no way around it, because when we started this talking about time in the in the real estate game, if you just stay in there for 20 years, you can't avoid it. It's a train rolling down the tracks that you can't slow down. You will get wealthy. Just keep buying and hold on to your stuff, and there's no stopping it. You can overcome mistakes with time. You can overcome buying things wrong with time. There's a lot that can be overcome with staying in the game. But most people don't have the patience or the, like, tolerance to stay in it for more than 24 months in most cases. And like, that's where they burn out.
Well, I think the complement between understanding interest, which I said on another podcast, is the cost of money. You alluded to it. Like, you said, if the bank's giving you all this money with high risk, of course the interest rate's going to be 14%. You're talking about the example earlier, but on an actual asset-backed loan, it's going to be in that 6 to 8% range. That's the cost of money. And traditional finance, people are so afraid of cost. They look at, oh, I bought this house for 200,000, but after 30 years, I paid 422,000. That's bullshit. No, what's bullshit is thinking that a bank's going to give you that money and not earn anything on it. And look, I'm a fan of bitching about the banks all day long, so I empathize with that member of the inner circle, but I'm bitching about so many people not understanding the economics of banks and not using it in their favor, which is why we're fans of creating your own bank. But the compliment behind the knowledge and philosophy and psychology of, I understand interest as definitionally the cost of money. So if someone gives me money, they deserve to get a return. Cool. Just like I'm trying to do when I buy the real estate. Now, complement that with the long-term view, the long-term range. And as you're talking there, because that was a genuine question from me, and I do have my lines of credit lined up. And as you answered it, I kind of worked through it in my mind. This is where I'm at. I don't want to get burnt out with my real estate. So if I have a long-term view, and I want it to benefit my family today, I know it deep in my heart, it's going to benefit me long-term. So when I come up to this situation where, okay, I have this large expense, well, maybe I have the cash sitting there, but if I use the cash, because that's what people tell you, if you have the money, use the cash. Well, that's not going to allow me to sleep well at night, because I got a wife and kids. And I do want to go to the steakhouse every now and again. I want to reap the rewards of the risks that I'm taking. So if a bank is willing to give me a line of credit, and that line of credit, let's just say it's backed by the equity of the asset, all that's doing is giving me access to what I already have. I just don't have access to my equity. So the line of credit, I'm going to pull from that. I'm going to pull from that, one, to keep my cash. That's going to allow me to sleep well at night. Two, if I'm in this game long term, I understand the cost of money. I don't mind taking 30 grand from the bank, paying them 8.5% on the line of credit over the next 12 months, not shoving my entire cash flow back to the bank. I'm going to take my little sliver. Again, this may not be your strategy, but this is how I would think it through. Be like, I'm still going to take my sliver, because that's going to make me feel good about my investment, because I don't want to get burnt out. I'm going to take my little sliver. I'm going to shove the rest back into that line of credit, because if I pay it back today, hopefully I'll be able to borrow it tomorrow. Same thing with your life insurance policies. Yep. Your policy loan is just premature access to a death benefit in the future, right? Because if you die with an outstanding loan, they deduct it from your death benefit. So all that is a loan. It's early access to death benefit. So I'm going to take that while keeping my money growing. So maybe that wasn't a perfect answer, but some people out there thinking that's how my brain thought it through. It's like, okay, interest is the cost of money. I'm in this for the long term. I don't want to deplete my cash. So I'll use a line of credit, let's just make a rule for ourselves. 75% of my future cash flow will go to pay off the line of credit, but I'm still going to keep 25% of myself to make me feel good about my investment and keep me in the game so I don't get burnt out. Because like Jeff said earlier, the people who are frustrated the most are the people that don't get in the game and the people that exit too soon. You don't want to be those people. So stay in the game, use the tools. That is an important lesson today.
And it's a sophisticated way to think about it too, because you're strapping your business with the debt the business created. And so like, don't misunderstand that, because there's tax benefits of deductible interest. Those are expenses that should flow through the business. And so that's another place the hobby versus the business mindset gets blurry, because you see a $1,500 bill for a hot water heater and you're like, oh, well, I've got to pay that. And no, you fucking don't.
Yeah.
Like the business made that expense, so the business needs to strap that expense to it. And so to your point, whether the line of credit comes from your life insurance policy or whether the line of credit comes from the bank makes no difference. The accounting is still the same. And it should never put your family in a financial situation where it's deducting from your overall like operating account within your household. And like, that's another big thing that is important to understand. So the other thing that you can do is take that expensive money at 14% or whatever and use leverage to fix all the mechanicals. Like, one of the best lessons you can learn as a new investor in real estate is to go in and take expensive money from the bank in the form of hard money and rehab every single thing within that property. All of the mechanicals, the expensive shit, put new roofs on it, put everything on it. Use the bank's money to do it if it's going to increase the asset value enough to support it. And you won't have any expenses for 3 to 5 years because you're fixing everything on the way in. So everything that has deferred maintenance on that property that's going to come up and bite you in the ass, you're going to fix using that 14% money on the way in. Then you're going to refinance into the new loan of 7 or 8, which you're talking about. And long term, you're going to hold that for 7 to 8. So you're going to use other people's money to fix all of your future expenses that you're going to be encountering in the first 3 to 5 years.
I love that. I've heard you teach that in the inner circle. And I really like that, because I think, again, I have to fight my like teacher day mindset on like, I can delay expenses long term, but what I'm missing out there is the future cost is going to be much higher and it's just going to be dragging. I think that's what's going to create burnout in the real estate game. So you're saying take that money, fix everything on the front end so you can reap the positive cash flow on the back end. And again, you're adding value to a property. This is why I like real estate as opposed to stock market, because there's literally nothing you can do to your stock market portfolio to add value to that asset. You're at the whim of everyone else but you. That's passive, but it's also a weak position. So if you want to be in a strong position and just a little bit more active, real estate's one of the few things that you can actually add monetary value to and get that money back. So I like that, Jeff. I appreciate you saying that, because Jeff is a big advocate of taking care of all the problems on the front end, save yourself the hassle on the back end. So Jeff, I don't know if we've talked 50% of the people into buying real estate and had the other 50% run away, or if it's more 75-25 or vice versa. But give me your last thoughts for the people that are right on the edge of buying their property. Is it simply as just saying, take that damn step, put that money to work? Time's going to go by. A year from now, you're going to thank yourself.
Yep. Consider it the tuition to get the education that you need for the future.
Boom.
So pull the trigger on it. Get in there now. You won't regret it.
Ladies and gentlemen, follow us on social. Get into the Tactical Empire community free Facebook group, and you'll see that people are trying to get their first real estate properties this year. We posted a question the other day, and there are people out there just like you. If you need guidance, if you need coaching, that's what we're here for. Hit us up with the questions. Jeff, send it to the people.
Have a great week. Kick ass, chase your dreams, build your empire. Talk soon.